This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with not the one and only Brandon Swanson, but I am joined with Sean Anderson.
I don't know what to say here.
He says, hey. That's usually what he says.
Hola, mi amo Sean.
Hola, mi amo Sean. But Sean doing a gentleman's job today, filling in for Brandon Swanson, who he called me up and he's like, you know what? We originally were like, hey, we're going to record at 7. Then he goes, oh, I have meetings for work, 7:30. All right, 8 o'clock. And then eventually he's like, hey, just see if Sean can do it because I don't know when I'm going to get out of these meetings. And I said, I gotcha. And Sean was there. Like a good neighbor, Sean was there to help us out.
No bueno, no.
No bueno? No good, Sean?
No bueno.
No good? But
no bueno.
We got a jam-packed show. I'm glad Sean's actually on for this one because we're talking double NBA draft here on the Primetime Podcast. Last week we talked about Mo Bamba. You guys can check that one out. Today we're talking about prospects, who needs the best performance in the Combine. Coming up this week, the 16th, is when that starts. We're also going to look at wing players. Who are the best wings outside of Michael Porter Jr.? Then we're going to end the show looking at some Scott Frost. Can he turn around the Nebraska Cornhuskers in his first season in 2018? But before we start, a little bit of housekeeping. Number one, if you want to be like any of our numerous number of patrons, and thank you to our patrons out there who support the show each and every month, go ahead and check out patreon.com. You can be in on our poll question for new video each month. You can get our exclusive Patreon podcast. You can either join a podcast too. We have several different tiers for you to help support the channel, so check that link down below in the description. You can check out also our store to get yourself an MVP t-shirt. That is also in the description. MostValuablePodcast.com is where you get everything for MVP each and every day. And last but not least, if you're on iTunes, if you're on Apple Podcasts, go give the Primetime Podcast and all of the podcasts at MVP a 5-star rating and type in a little something about what you like about the podcast. Because right now for the Primetime Podcast, we're a 4 out of 5, which is still good. But we still got that one rating that says all we talk about is SEC, where we're not talking SEC at all today. So we need more good ratings so people know that we don't just talk about the SEC, and we talk about numerous things, both college basketball and college football. But Sean, let's jump right into it.
Let's do it.
We're looking at NBA draft. We're going to look at the Combine first. Combine starts May 16th, runs all the way through the 21st. Kind of going to talk about who needs the best performance next week at the Combine. I'll let you start first. Who's your first guy who needs a good performance? Well, a great performance, I'll say.
I think it's clear for everybody that's watching this, whether it's the first time they're hearing about the NBA draft, whether it's the first time they're ever watching one of our podcasts, one of our segments, it's clearly Michael Porter Jr.
Yep.
This was the #1 high school prospect coming into the year of college basketball, had a ton of hype, and then in the first game against Iowa State, he played 2 minutes, made one shot, and then went to the bench with a back injury and didn't return until I think it was the second game of Missouri's SEC tournament run. Came in, didn't look too great, played against Florida State in the NCAA tournament, didn't look too great. Missouri looked like a different team. It looked like they were trying to run through Porter. He said he was only 65% healthy, still tried to test it anyways. He hurt his draft stock, not only from being injured, but also coming back and showing what he was like, injured at 65%. He needs to come out and have a fantastic he needs to come out and have a fantastic combine. He needs to look fluid. He needs to look quick. He needs to look agile. He needs to show the healthy and great Michael Porter that we thought he was in high school.
Well, and that's easy. I served you the softball with that one. Like everyone's
we'll
gonna
get the easy one out of the way.
Everyone's gonna come into this and go, Michael Porter Jr., he's the one. And like the reason being is the injury is why he's the easy one. And really, I could ask you, will he, won't he? We don't know what we're gonna see at the Combine for Michael Porter Jr., but I think it's just a unanimous, hey, he's the one, get him out of the way, he's the one that needs the best kind of performance at the Combine. Two guys that I'm kind of thinking about, one could be he'll definitely be a top 10 pick, could be a top 5 pick in the NBA draft, and then another one who is probably a second-round pick right now, but at one time we all had in our first round. The first one for me is easy as Mo Bamba. I want to see, I've already seen how you changed your shot a little bit. I've seen you on interviews like The Jump, saw you drain 9 straight threes in a practice, but I want to see you at the Combine when we get to the drills that they run, when we get to the shooting drills, we get to kind of see them perform. I want to see if you can take what you're adapting on your own and do that when someone's trying to guard you and try to be in your face. The other guy, just to see what we're going to get from him, if anything, is Hamidou Diallo, because he's a guy, for me, we had him in the lottery about middle of the draft, like 1.0, 2.0 of our mock draft, and then he fell out because, like, you know what, he's way too raw.
Well, and the crazy thing about Hamidou was he was a high school player last year and was expected to join the NBA.
Yeah.
He even was at the Combine last year. Then he ended up pulling out because of the new rules that they do have, and then went to Kentucky. We saw his flaws at Kentucky, that he couldn't play basketball. I mean, he doesn't have a ton of basketball skills. He's as raw as they come. He's a freakish athlete. And last year at the Combine, I think he had the highest vertical leap with 44.5 inches. Ran a super quick agility time at 10.8 seconds. His shuttle run was super quick, 2.7 times. His three-quarter sprint was 3.11. Standing vert was 34.5. I mean, this kid is a great athlete, but we saw at Kentucky that he wasn't a great basketball player.
Do you think he's going to have similar, like, where, he's the best jump, the best shuttle, the best agility drill?
Well, he wasn't the best. He wasn't the best in the agility and shuttle, but he was the best in the vertical by far. He had 2.5 inches over Frank Jackson from Duke last year. I think the thing with Hamidou is he needs to have a very similar performance in the Combine, because now teams saw the flaws that he has in his basketball game, and now if he doesn't live up to the same athlete that he was, now he's screwed, and he's definitely in the second round. So that's one thing. You know, we haven't put him in our first round for a mock draft either, but if he doesn't come out and have a fantastic Combine, he might be looking at maybe late second round at that, because a team's going to need to work on him very hard, and they need to really put a ton of time and effort to get him to become a great basketball player, because, again, he's very raw right now.
Well, and that's just it. The reason why I bring both those up is Mo Bamba's the one where it's like, hey, you know what? We actually know what we're getting from you. Yeah, do we have to work on a few things, kind of get the wrench in there, fine-tune some stuff? Yeah, but where Hamidou, it's basically like, I've got this mold of clay that looks like nothing, and I have to shape it, put it in the heater, get it to, like, harden, and then chip away at stuff. And really, it's, I can get you to be whatever I want you to be, but will I be able to take this mold of clay and mold it into what I want for my team?
Yeah, and he's got a fairly decent stroke. I mean, just looking at it, like, I mean, the basics are there. He's not, like, super wide on his feet. He comes up pretty straight and narrow. I think his elbow's decently, like, where it should be. Like, he's got his form isn't terrible, is what I'm trying to say. But again, it's just not like going in. He doesn't have a touch. He doesn't have great handles. Like, he needs to, like, if he doesn't come out and have a ridiculous Combine where he comes out and, again, lights it up like he did last year, showing his athleticism, he's going to be absolutely screwed. So I think that one fits. The one thing with Bamba, though, I know you threw him out there, but I don't think he's going to be able to change people's minds, really, because, again, this is going to be strictly on the basketball court. I know you're talking about drills when they have them go up against one another.
To me, more importantly, it's like the 4-on-4s, the 5-on-5s is what I want to see Bamba perform well in.
I think where Bamba's going to raise his draft stock is not going to be at the Combine. I think it's going to be solely in solo workouts. Okay. Like, remember when we saw Jamal Murray hit like 93 of 100 threes with the Celtics or something like that? If he goes into certain teams' workouts and have fantastic workouts, that's where he's going to raise his ability, because I don't think he's going to come out and people are going to be like, whoa, look at this freakish kid with a 7'6" wingspan. I feel like we know what we're going to get from Mo Bamba. He's going to have a fairly slow, not slow, but he's going to run around maybe a 11 to 13 agility run. I don't really know how he can really improve his Combine, or how he can improve his stock from his Combine, because, again, if he comes out and lights it up in the Combine and then does terrible in solo workouts, then that's going to screw him up. So I just think that Mo Bamba, he's not going to really jump his status too much, because people still see what he is, and it's really that physical. He's got a decent amount of aggression. He's got the base of a shot, and he's got a okay touch around the rim. But again, Bamba, I don't think he's going to crazily jump up the boards.
And here's the other thing I'm kind of thinking is, and this is first round talent as well. At first, I was like, you know what? To me, we've always had out of the point guards, Trae Young has always been the top ranked point guard in most of our mock drafts, followed by Colin Sexton, followed by Shai Gilgeous. Yeah. And that kind of space between Sexton and Gilgeous is closer than the space between Sexton and Young.
In most people's mind. I just want to clarify that.
I'm just saying, like, mock draft where we've had them go. However, all three are going to be at the combine. In your mind, to me, I'm looking more of this on the Shea, Colin Sexton side because I don't think that there's anything Colin Sexton can do at the combine, or if there's anything Trae Young can't do at the combine that's going to make people go, man, we got to take Colin Sexton above Trae Young. But could Shea Gilgeous show some people, hey, maybe if we're thinking Colin Sexton, maybe we've got to give this kid Shea Gilgeous a little bit of a look, and could he kind of shorten the gap between him and Colin Sexton?
I think if people are looking at Colin Sexton, they're looking at point guards, so they've already scouted Shea Gilgeous. I don't think it's something where they're going to be like, oh, who the hell's this kid? I didn't know.
No, not like who the hell is he,
but like,
could he do anything at the combine to make that gap shorten and bring them closer together, basically? If
he shows that they're similar athletically, which I don't think they are, I think Colin Sexton's the most athletic point guard in this draft. I think if Shea is somehow able, if maybe Colin Sexton has a bad combine, maybe Shea is a great athlete and will kill it at these workouts. If Shea shows that he's a similar athlete, and then in the 5-on-5 at least has a very similar showing to Colin Sexton, I think that could put Shea above Colin Sexton to most teams because he's, again, longer. He's longer. If he's a similar athlete, that length's going to be obviously swayed in the right way. That's obviously going to help him, move above Colin Sexton because, again, having a 6'6" point guard like that who is as quick as Colin Sexton has similar jumping abilities, and also Shea Gilgeous is slightly a better defender in my mind than Colin Sexton. I think that might have the ability to, at least have Shea jump over Colin Sexton in some people's mind. I don't think Trae Young is going to do anything that makes people go, wow, because he already did that on the court. Like, what he did at Oklahoma has already supplanted him in most people's mind as the number one point guard. Colin Sexton, he had a really great end of the season, what he did in the SEC tournament. Also had a pretty decent showing in the NCAA tournament. Shea, I think, again, he ended the year hot too. If he's able to just show that he's athletically on the same level as Colin Sexton, explosive-wise, vertical, and quickness-wise, then maybe that can help him move up just because of his size.
Well, and the thing that I'm kind of thinking about when it comes to Sexton and Shea Gilgeous, first off, I'd agree with you that Shea Gilgeous is a little bit better than Colin Sexton defensively, only on, and this is per 36 minutes, but when you look at their block steal stats, Colin Sexton 0.1 in blocks, 1.0 in steals, where Shea Gilgeous is 0.5 in blocks and then 1.8 for steals. So, I mean, the blocks are kind of similar. It's still less than 1, but he's averaging almost an entire steal per 36.
I mean, you can't base base defense strictly off those stats.
No, but I'm just saying, like, if I had to give an edge to either of them, I would give the edge defensively to Shea Gilgeous.
I would do that just because, again, of his wingspan, his ability to move.
I mean, he's 6'6" also.
His ability to move laterally as well. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
6'6" compared to 6'2".
And again, you can't really use defensive stats to say, oh, these guys are better defender just because of Kentucky had better players. Kentucky has Coach John Calipari, who, again, is just a great all-around college coach. I mean, he's playing in a better system. He's playing with better players. That's going to help him jump lanes, take more chances. If someone's going down low on the block, he's able to take more chances and go down and block shots. Shea Gilgeous. I do still think he is a better defender, though. Colin Sexton, I mean, he wasn't great staying in front of defenders, where Shea Gilgeous was able to really, for most of the part, was able to deny penetration for most of the guys he was guarding. So I think Shea does have the defensive edge on him. Colin's a better scorer, though. But I think, again, it depends on where the team wants to go. Playmaking wise, I don't think they're anything miraculous. I mean, these aren't like Lonzo Ball type players in Shea and Colin Sexton. So I think that they might be on the similar level. I think Colin might get a little bit of an edge there in playmaking, but I think it's really, do you want a scoring point guard then? If they're, again, similarly athletically at the combine, do you want a scoring point guard then in Colin Sexton, who could be probably your number one scorer possibly in the NBA, or do you want a guy who's going to be very well-rounded in Shea Gilgeous?
Well, and the other thing that I was thinking about for them is more so on the shooting, is when you look at the shooting percentages, I mean, Shea Gilgeous overall, the better, and I'm looking per 36, has the better field goal percentage of 48 compared to 44, better 3-point, 40 compared to 33, better free throw percentage, 82 to 77. And the thing that I think about is, yes, he is taller. Yes, he has a greater wingspan. Because they are so close, like in mock drafts, in big boards, because I just pulled up Brandon and myself, I had Colin Sexton 9 on our last big board. Shai Gilgeous was 12, only a 3-person difference between the two of them, whereas Brandon had Colin Sexton at 11, Shai Gilgeous at 14. So again, one more person in between, but they're not too far apart. Is someone going to look at it and go, yes, Colin Sexton's a true, like, he's the better scorer, but there are skills that maybe we've even seen at the combine, and then maybe he showed a little bit more of it that, hey, he's going to be able to assist. He's the better shooter.
Well,
and in this NBA, maybe
quick,
the better shooter is going to help us out better.
They're not going to base it strictly on the combine, though. So, I mean, like, if Colin Sexton goes out and hits every single shot, then, yeah, people are going to be like, holy shit, he rose up to the occasion and didn't miss a single shot. But I think people can, again, look back on that game against Minnesota where he was a 3-on-5 and scored 40 points in that game to keep him in there.
The combine isn't the only thing they're going to look at.
No, of course. I don't think a combine performance, though. This isn't like the NFL where it's going to, at least like Josh Allen throwing 80 yards down the field. That's going to get you moved up on draft boards. But with the NBA, I don't think it's going to really change things too much because maybe the speed does a little bit, but all these guys are super athletic. All these guys can jump. So that's when something like Hamidou Diallo jumps 2.5 inches higher than the other guy. That's what really sparks people's minds. I don't think they're going to do anything too drastic that's going to make, at least in my mind, that Shai's going to jump Colin Sexton. And I'm still going back and thinking, like, I don't know if Colin Sexton is a worse defender than Shai Gilgeous. Like, I can't put it together because, like, again, I really love what Colin did, and Colin didn't have a ton of help with him. So I still think that
to me, the only way we're going to get an answer, and I'm using air quotes for our audio listeners to that question, is if they, let's say, 5-on-5 drill at the combine, and by happenstance we get Shai Gilgeous on Colin Sexton.
But even then, again, that's just like,
I know it's just the combine.
No,
but
then in that situation, that doesn't mean like one guy's better than the other defensively. One guy might have just had a bad day.
But the thing, and that's the thing with the combine. Like, if you're going to show up, you can't have a bad day with the draft stock. But if that situation happens, then we can take out the Alabama didn't have any players besides Colin Sexton. Look at how stacked Kentucky is. We just go to, hey, how did they do one-on-one? And people will go back to that, and that could be something. To me, the big thing that I look at is the shooting, and this is also going to blend into individual team workouts. Colin Sexton is the better athlete. He is the better scorer. But in this NBA, do you want the better true scorer, or are teams going to start to see as that we get closer to the draft, hey, maybe we want the guy who's a little bit taller, a little bit more better wingspan, and he can put that into defense, and he's a better shooter in this new NBA where shooting is king.
Well, I don't think you should take the 3-point percentages too much to heart. And the
I'm
free
just
throw
saying
percentage
all
to
shooting
heart.
percentages.
Well, again, I like looking at, again, 3-point percentages. Shai Gilgeous beat him by, I think, 7%.
Yeah.
But also, Colin Sexton took, I think, 80 more threes than Shai Gilgeous was. Shai only took 57 threes, and again, was on a team that moved the ball very efficiently. Had Kevin Knox that could take defenders away from him. And then also, we look so much to free throw percentage to be a benchmark on how these guys are going to do at the 3-point line in the NBA. I look at Shai, again, 82% from the line, 174 attempts. Then you look at Colin Sexton, 252 attempts, 77.8. So, I mean, he had so many attempts, was consistently looked on as the guy, was probably drained for most of that part. I still think that Colin Sexton, I think if we were going to break this down, Colin Sexton's a better driver and a better scorer.
Yeah.
Shai Gilgeous might have the passing edge. Shooting-wise, I think it might be tied right now. Because, again, you could say, oh, we'll look at 3-point percentage. But, again, Colin Sexton took way more attempts.
The volume's greater.
The volume's greater, and also the pressure of what Colin Sexton had to do was more on him. I think that, again, Colin Sexton has the base of a good shot on him. It's nothing where it's like Josh Jackson where he was absolutely garbage. Defense, I will give the edge to Shai because I think he's more versatile and he's longer. So it really comes down to athleticism. And in my mind, clearly Colin Sexton is the most athletic point guard, but I think Shea Gilgeous could probably, end that when it comes to the combine.
I'll ask you this. Is there a guy at the combine who is right now in your mind a clear second-round prospect that you're like, hey, we need to see a strong showing from him to where maybe not bump him up into the first round, but hey, if we see a strong showing from him, maybe he can show promise to be a steal for the team in the second round. Or a team in the second round.
I'm going off my mock draft.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I know some of these people have. These two players I'm going to mention. Well, I'll throw three out there.
Go ahead.
Have these three guys in their first round. I see them as second round prospects. Two Duke guys.
Okay.
One Grayson Allen. If Grayson Allen comes out and shows what he was able to show for the past 4 years,
into the first, maybe
he might be able to play himself into the first. If he shows that he's a pretty decent athlete compared to his contemporaries, if he comes out and is shown as a leader on the floor in those 5-on-5 situations, I think that could really help him because he has that maturity, and people are looking, teams are looking for the 3-and-D ability. They're looking for, scoring off the bench. They're also looking for leaders on their team. Like, look at T.J. McConnell. I mean, T.J. McConnell's been great for Philadelphia in the playoffs because he has that extra edge. He has that leadership ability. So I think Grayson Allen could possibly play himself into the first round. And then I will also throw in Gary Trent Jr., showed the basis of I think it was Gary Trent. Gary, was it? Hold on, let me make sure. Well, the other guys were all out
because it was Duval. It was Duval and Trent were.
Yeah, I'm trying to think which one I'm thinking of because I always mix the two up. Yeah, it was Trent.
Okay,
I should just go with my Gary Trent was a great shooter.
Go what
in
you
college.
got, Sean. Go what you got.
Always mix them up. Gary Trent was a fantastic shooter, 6'6". If he comes out, has decent showings at the combine, shows he's a great athlete, and is able to shake it off a bit in the 5-on-5, I think that might be able to put him back in because again, the shooting is there. He was a deadly lights out shooter from 3, 40% from 3 on 6.5 attempts per game. Also shot about 87% from the line. So I think Gary Trent could really play himself in the first round because if he's able to show that he can play a little bit defense in the 5-on-5, show that he's a quick athlete, moving vertically, laterally, I think that he could put himself in the first round. And then the final guy is Raleigh Atkins, a guy that was at the combine last year. Some people see him as a first rounder. I don't because not only based on this performance, but consistently throughout the season, just look at that Buffalo game that Arizona played. Raleigh Atkins, all those guards just absolutely got shut down by mid-major and mid-major defenders. Yeah. I mean, that's something where you might say Buffalo was a really good team with senior leadership. That's fine. Raleigh Atkins was also a senior leader on that Arizona team. So he needed to step up and play, and he didn't do that in that game. That's the biggest game of your season, and you went down as a 4 seed. And again, he did that consistently at Arizona where, DeAndre Ayton and had to do most of the work. He needs to come out, have a good combine, similar numbers to what he had last year, and then also in the 5-on-5 show his lockdown defensive potential and then hit some shots on the outside.
So I'm going to bring up two. And before I bring up my two, the thing, and this is going to be jumping ahead, because I'm going to ask you this question to end it all, was we're going to hit team interviews. Grayson Allen to me as a kid where, he's got stuff to prove a little bit in the combine, have a good performance, but team interviews is where I think he's really got to nail it. Where it's like all the questions of what was going on at Duke, the kind of some people in maturity questions. Well, it's not something where it's like, oh my God, you have to answer for this, but he's really got, to me, knock it and impress teams at interviews.
Real quick with that, I think what's more dependent for Grayson Allen is what Coach K has to say. I mean, this guy is respected throughout the NBA, former national men's basketball coach, has worked with so many NBA pros. If Coach K is able to say, hey, I give my seal of approval to Grayson Allen,
then he doesn't have to worry.
I don't think he really has to worry. Because, again, we see NBA players who have that extra edge, and they're super important to their team. We've seen that throughout the playoffs this year. So I think that, we'll use Joel Embiid. We'll use pretty much all the Miami Heat. What's his face? Former Duke player. Justice Winslow. Trying to break JoJo's glasses. I mean, like, having an edge, having some toughness to him. I know some people more see it like whininess, but again, being able to get under people's skins is important in the NBA. So I think if at least Coach K said, this kid is giving me no problems over the past 4 years. He was a leader on our team. I think that's more of a sign of approval than what he does in personal interviews. Now, if he goes in and just doesn't give a shit in personal interviews, that's something else. But I think Grayson, it's more dependent on Coach K.
So you threw out 3 guys. I'll throw out 3 guys. The first one Tony Carr from Penn State. This is a kid where I feel like the combine alone isn't going to do it, but a strong combine might move him up in the second round, where right now, to me, he always fluctuates. Like, is he 40? Is he going to be later than 40? Is he going to be like 35? Because any team could take him and be like, man, he could be our backup point guard in the NBA. He's not going to be your starter, but he can develop into a nice backup point guard for you when your starter needs to come off and get some minutes on the bench. The second guy I'm looking at is Justin Jackson. And now, maybe Maryland fans out there can tell me if he's signed an agent. Haven't seen anything if he has or hasn't. He's an interesting one because if he hasn't signed an agent, he might come back maybe this year because he was injured most of this year with an injury. So he missed most of the or all the regular season pretty much. And he's one that kind of like Michael Porter Jr., if he can kind of show that, hey, I'm coming back from this injury, can kind of improve his stock within the second round. And the other one, and this is the guy I'm most excited for in the second round, Javon Carter.
Justin Jackson did sign.
Okay, so he is going to be coming out, so you don't have to worry about him going back. So he needs to prove, kind of like Michael Porter, that he's good from that injury. Then Javon Carter, because to me, it's the one thing he was known for in school was defense. What else are you going to bring to the table? Are you going to bring a little bit of a shot at the NBA? How are you going to do in that shooting drill? How do you do in the strength drill? Because when you're a defensive guy, I want you to be a strong guy, especially a guy who will be playing on the post or kind of wing post at the forward position. And he's a guy that I think could improve his second round stock, maybe be a first or second pick in the second round if he has a really good combine. Last thing I'll ask you, and we're getting really close to the end. Who's the one player that needs a phenomenal team interview?
Team interview?
Team interview. Like a team interviews him, he needs to knock it out of the park.
That's a tough one. First off, you didn't prep me for this question, Ricky. So
I tried.
Team, like, are you saying like, I don't know,
like Grayson Allen would be
I don't
one.
think Grayson Allen needs
like
a great
he
team
could
interview.
be an answer that you could use.
I would probably say DeAnthony Melton with the whole FBI investigation.
Okay.
Just kind of breaking that down, what's going on, what's happening. And then also, you didn't play for the past year. What have you been doing? What have you been improving? I think Mitchell Robinson also falls into that as well.
He's exactly who I was going to say.
Just because, explain your reasoning.
What happened with Western Kentucky and that whole thing?
Yeah, or not even Western Kentucky, but like, why do you want to be in the NBA?
Yeah.
What have you been doing to improve yourself? I don't think the Western Kentucky questions are too important because, again, he wasn't really saying like, hey, I need to go to college. He wasn't really on board at all and settled for Western Kentucky because they were like, oh, we'll take a 5-star recruit. If you leave, you leave. But hey, if you want to come play for us, we'll let you come play. Where like Coach K is like, you need to give me a for sure answer. So I think Mitchell Robinson and Anthony Simmons probably are the two guys, just because they are high schoolers.
Yeah.
Show your maturity level. Show what you can. Tell us what you've gone through over the past years.
No, to me, definitely Mitchell Robinson is a guy where it's like, hey, you know what? We're thinking about taking you in the first. Let me know, like, answer my questions. Basically, it's one of those where it's like, make me feel confident that I'm picking you at the right spot here in the NBA draft. Camera's dead. You're seeing our logo. But before we end things and move on, any final things you want to mention about the Combine?
No, not really. Michael Porter Jr. better ball out, though.
We almost went a full 30 minutes on the NBA Combine. So let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Who needs to ball out at the Combine? Who are you looking at? What kind of players are you thinking are going to play well, aren't going to play well? And if it even matters in your mind how they do at the Combine, let us know in that comment section. Let's move on, though, into our next topic. And what we're looking at, still staying NBA draft, but we're looking at the Wangs. And the one thing that we're looking at is not just who's the best wing in the NBA draft, because I think it's pretty unanimous. It's Michael Porter Jr. No matter who it is, he's going to be the best wing or the top wing off the board. Go ahead, Sean.
Can I make an argument?
Sure, because the topic is who's going to be the best wing. I put besides Michael Porter Jr. because I feel like everyone's assuming he's going to be the first wing off the board.
Can I say that he's not a wing? He's a 4 in the NBA.
Okay, you can say that.
Again, unless he comes out and change my mind. And as a 6'11" prospect, I've known we've seen players of his size and caliber play the wing before, but if you saw him in the NCAA tournament, if you saw him in that one SEC game, he does not have the mobility to play and guard threes. He does not have the ability to drive an attack. He was playing exactly like a stretch four does in the NBA today. So I don't know. Again, this is based on if he doesn't come back and isn't a fluid athlete in the combine. This back injury is not anything to mess with. If he doesn't come back and look fluid like he did in high school, I don't think he can play the 3 in the NBA, and he's going to be a 4 and possibly a stretch 4 in the NBA.
Well, and the good thing about this topic is we are excluding him from the discussion no matter what.
But I just want to throw that out there because I don't even know if he's the best wing prospect. He might not be a wing.
And the thing is, if you don't think he's a wing, you think he's a 4, or if you think he is a wing and he is the best wing, we're excluding him because most people have him off the board first if they see him as a small forward prospect. So basically, the 3 that we're looking at, Mikal Bridges, Miles Bridges, Kevin Knox. These are kind of like the next 3 that are for the wing category. Some people might put Zaire Smith there, depending on if you see him as a guard or if you see him as a forward. So if you want to say Zaire Smith, I will let you say it, but I will let you go first, Sean. Who's the best wing in this draft?
Out of those 3,
or out of anyone, if you think there's one better than
one. I think those are the 3 guys that are for sure in there. It's just really where would you rank them? And then I think Zaire Smith is 4. But out of those 3, and I've said it on the Fast Break podcast, Mikal Bridges is the safest. Kevin Knox has the highest floor, but is the biggest project. And Miles Bridges has the ability to be a star, but his probably floor is a bench player. So Mikal, I see him being a starter in the NBA for the next 10 years at least. Like this guy has the makeup of being a starter, but I don't know if he has the makeup of being a star. Miles Bridges has the makeup of being a star, but he needs to put a lot of work into his shot. He needs to put a lot of work into expanding his offensive game, and he needs to put in some effort at least in the gym, filling himself out because. Again, I don't want to say any person is, fat or overweight because, again, hey, look at me.
Maybe not. Look at myself.
But
270.
But I think Miles is a guy that could do with at least adding more muscle, and I think that would benefit his game just because it does look like he's getting tired a lot on the floor. It doesn't look like he can play, maybe 30 minutes in the NBA. Again, we don't know. I don't know exactly how he's going to translate to the NBA, but at least what I saw out of college, I think he needs to at least go into a fitness program, and maybe being around NBA trainers and everything will help him do that. But if he's able to put in that work, I think he has the ability to be a star in the NBA. And then Kevin Knox, he could be anywhere of a guy that's out of the league in 5 years, or he could be a guy that, again, is a star or at least a starter like Mikal Bridges over the next 10 years. One of our commenters compared him to Tobias Harris.
Yeah.
I think that could be a very apt comparison to or for Kevin Knox. So if I'm going to say which one's the best, I would have to go with the safest, which is Mikal Bridges, because I know that guy's going to be a starter in the NBA for the next 10 years.
Yeah, and that's the same one that I was kind of going to lean towards the start. And the whole thing of when I first came up with this topic, I'm like, oh, it's going to be great. Brandon's going to be here. I want to get his thought on it because the whole thing was you kind of sparked this topic in my head because the whole thing on our mock draft segments that we've kind of talked about is, yeah, Mikal has been the kind of if de facto. He's been the first wing off the board besides Michael Porter Jr. if you think he is a wing.
Yeah.
But recently, like the Knicks segment and then in our mock draft, there's been a little bit of a challenge of, is Kevin Knox the guy that could go ahead of Mikal Bridges? And I mean, looking back at my last big board, which this will change when we get to May 21st, but how I had these guys ranked out was Mikal Bridges was first on my first out of the wings at my big board at 8. Miles Bridges was at 10. Kevin Knox was at 11. So right now, I'm kind of sitting the same way of if I am taking any of these guys first and foremost, it's Mikal Bridges. Yes, he's the oldest one where some people might say, hey, you know what? He's a few years older than Kevin Knox, about 3 years older than Kevin Knox, but he's only a year, not even, older than Miles Bridges. But he's a guy to me that fits a mold of what you need in this NBA. And I know I've said the whole time when it comes to Mikal Bridges is I've used a name like Klay Thompson. And the reason why I say that is he's going to come out and be exactly Klay Thompson, that's who he is. No, but he can do similar things for a team. He can be a guy defensively that if you improve him in the NBA, could develop to be a guy that can lock down a number one on another team. He can also be a guy that is really deadly from three and have a good three-point percentage. When I look at the other two, though, that's where my question lies, is who is then the next one behind Mikal Bridges? Is it Miles Bridges? Because to me, he did take a step back draft-wise. In, like, last year, we were all over Miles Bridges, always a top 10 pick. This year, I'm not quite sure.
Well, I think that's just because he didn't have a worse year. He was a freshman, and we expected a bigger growth.
And that's what I'm saying.
And he was pretty much the same player.
Draft-wise. He took a step back draft-wise.
But it wasn't anything that we saw out of his game.
It wasn't
just
like
that there's
he took,
younger.
it's not like, he regressed huge.
There's just younger players that have higher potentials.
And that's why I don't know if Kevin Knox is, like, that's my question, is who's number two between Bridges and Knox? Well, Miles and Knox.
I think it's dependent on the team. And real quick, I'm now looking at more pictures of Miles Bridges because I'm trying to, like, I never would want to say that about a player. And then there's some pictures where he looks absolutely juiced.
Well, he is
like absolutely ripped out of his mind.
He does have the most poundage out of any of them. 210 for Mikal Bridges, 230 for Miles, and then 206 for Kevin.
He's a big dude. Yeah, no, he's a big dude. And there's some pictures where he looks absolutely ripped. Like his arms are jacked. But then I go back to the game that he had, it was a Syracuse. It just looks like he doesn't have the gas. I'll use that. He doesn't have the gas tank. I don't want to say that he doesn't have I don't know if he has the gas tank to play in the NBA right now. Again, he's only, 21 years old, 20 years old. So I don't know. I just felt bad about saying that. So I just wanted to reprimand that.
And the thing, I just want to jump in, the thing that might make you think that is because you look at it, whereas it's funny, where Kevin Knox is the tallest out of the three at 6'9". You would think that, the taller player, going to carry a little bit more weight and still look fine, but he's got the least weight.
Well, he's younger.
That too. Whereas Miles Bridges and Mikal Bridges, same height at 6'7", but Mikal is 20 pounds less. Maybe that's a little bit it.
Mikal's a stick.
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe that's a little bit too, where it's like, hey, they're the same height, and maybe it's like, Mikal's 20 pounds less. That's what you want to see out of Miles.
I think it's just one thing where Miles always had an NBA body, but then watching games where he was getting tired, then I question, all right, what's underneath that shirt?
Yeah.
That sounds a little.
Are you hiding a little bit of a gut, basically?
Yeah, but then again, I looked at his arm. Like I was looking at his pictures. This sounds super. Whatever.
Stamina questions.
It's stamina questions. It's about the gas tank. My question, but it's just a wonderment about like, is that something that, again, if I'm having questions about his gas tank, is that reflective on how is he taking care of his body?
Especially if you expect him to be a number one on your team eventually.
Is that a question about his diet? Is that a question just about how he's taking care of himself?
Yep.
Or is that just laziness? Again, I just feel like I'm not an expert to talk about this because of what I look like, being a pasty white, thin as.
But at the same time, we're not NBA prospects. Like, I'll bring Mo Bamba into the discussion when he was on the jump, and he was like, "Yeah, the thing I really like now is he's like, college was really like, hey, I got practice here, but I also got to focus on this paper to write and get it turned in at 10 a.m. the next morning." Where he's like, right now, I'm just kind of studying myself and studying my body and like what goes into my body, making sure I'm in the right health. And if I'm not saying I don't know Miles Bridges personally, but if he's not taking it to that degree, is that then a negative for an NBA team, especially with how much players check what goes into their bodies each and every day now?
Yeah, I think that's going to be dependent again on, talking to teams and then obviously seeing what he looks like. Yeah, seeing what he looks like at the combine. I just worry about his gas tank. That's all I'll leave it to, and we'll get off that question. And then going to the question between Kevin Knox and Miles. Miles is at least going to be able to, maybe he'll need a year to get acclimated to the NBA, but I still think that he's going to be able to contribute a little bit in his first year. And then in that second year, that's where you're going to start to see his progression and see if he can play in the NBA. Where Kevin Knox, I think it's going to be maybe 2, 3, 4 years of getting acclimated, getting weight on his body, developing his offensive game, becoming a part of the system before he starts before we start able to judge on where he is in an NBA prospect. I think he's similar to Frank Nikitalina from last year's draft, where obviously one's international, one's coming out of Kentucky, but I think Kevin Knox is going to need to go through more of that development and need time before you start analyzing who he is, where Miles Bridges could be like that Dennis Smith Jr. Guy, where all right, he's acclimated to the NBA. Now we're going to see what Dennis Smith Jr. can do next year. And I think that's where Miles is going to be. So I think that's going to be the biggest question of them. I would still put Miles over Kevin Knox, but I think it's more team fit dependent. And I would probably say the gap between Mikhail and Miles is larger between the gap of Miles and Kevin, just because if a team's able to take on a project, Kevin Knox might have a higher floor.
Like a New York
higher
Knicks
ceiling
team that we've talked about in the past, where like the Knicks could be a team that takes on a project.
Well, especially with KP being out. If KP's going to be out, that's pretty much writing you off for the playoffs next year.
Yeah.
Maybe David Fizdale can work some magic out of this team, but most likely if your star is going to be off the team in Kristaps Porzingis, a team like the Knicks could definitely come out and take a guy like Kevin Knox because they're going to have a year just to work on him.
So with Kevin Knox, we'll just say that he's the project player out of the three.
Yeah, big
when
time.
it comes to the other, so now we're going to compare Bridges to Bridges. To me, it comes down also, for me, Mikal Bridges again is my number one. But that's because to me, it's what do you want from a player on your NBA team? To me, I want a guy who's going to be not like think of Game of Zones where it's, hey, Terrence, what are you? Oh, I don't know. I'm a pretty good 3-and-D player. I don't want a pretty good. I want a phenomenal 3-and-D player, and that's what I see as the potential up for Mikal Bridges. He could be one of the best 3-and-D players in the league. However, what do you want? Do you want that? Or do you want a guy like Miles Bridges who, yeah, he's 6'7", just like Mikal, but he did average more rebounds in college than Mikal did?
Well, I don't think that has too much to do with it.
Well, he's more of like, Mikal's not going to be a guy that I'm going to go and grab 8 rebounds per game, where Miles Bridges could be that guy that goes and grabs you 7-8 rebounds per game, but isn't going to be that 3-and-D player like Mikal Bridges is.
I mean, the rebounds isn't why I'm drafting this player, though. I'm drafting him because he's, again, like you said, a fantastic 3-and-D player.
No, I'm saying Miles is the rebounder.
Yeah, I don't care about the rebounds. What I'm saying about with these players, like if Mikal doesn't grab a rebound, I don't care. If he's shutting down players, that's all I give that's all I care about.
But if you're a team that, hey, we don't need that 3-and-D player, let's go grab a guy who can grab some boards and score points.
As a 3, though, I mean, you want your 5s and 4s grabbing the boards. I mean, I think LeBron James has kind of changed that idea of what 3 should be doing because he's
everything.
because he's so versatile. But I mean, Paul George isn't a guy that's grabbing boards a ton of boards at that 3 position. Yeah. So again, I don't really need that on my 3. I think what it's looking at is if you have a star on your team, you're taking Mikal Bridges because you look at this team and you look at this draft, and a lot of these teams already do have stars. Phoenix has Devin Booker. Memphis has Mike Conley and Marc Gasol. You don't really need a guy to be a number 1 on that team right now. Maybe Memphis will be looking further ahead, but you don't need a number 1 on that team right now. You look at Dallas. Dallas just drafted their star in Dennis Smith Jr., so you could take a guy like Mikal Bridges. Atlanta needs a star. That's where maybe, again, if they drastically fall, somehow they won't, out of the 5th spot or the 6th spot, I think it is. Maybe they take a Miles Bridges, but if Mikal's off the board, then, it really is dependent on, do you want a 1 or do you want a guy that's going to be a starter for the next 10 years? And teams with already 1s on their team, Phoenix, Memphis, Dallas, probably Cleveland too, I think they'd look more to that Mikal side where, Miles would fall in because, hey, maybe we could take a shot on this kid. He has the leadership ability. He was taking big shots at Michigan State. He consistently was, the centerpiece of that team for the Spartans for the past 2 years. We saw that ability in college. He has the scoring. He has the shot. As long as he's able to develop his game a little bit more, at least attacking the basket, then he could, be a number 1 star, where Mikal is again a safer pick. And if you already have a number 1, you don't need a guy like Miles Bridges, or you don't need a guy like Miles Bridges. You need a Mikal Bridges in this NBA.
Well, and the thing that I'm kind of I'm looking at something right here, and something just kind of clicked in my head, and I'm going to see if this comparison will work. And I'm going to use career numbers in the NBA for this. So I'm going to give you 2 players, and this is completely off the cuff. I have not prepped this. No. I just hit it in my head. So I'm going to give you 2 guys' numbers.
Nothing beats blind resumes completely blind.
I guess completely blind. And I'm going in blind as this as well. So I will give you first player 1. So this is going to be his stats are going to be per 36 because he's going to be a rookie coming in this year. So 19.6 points per game, 8 boards per game, 3.1 assists per game, shoots 54% from the field, 36 from 3, 85 from the free throw line. He's 6'7". Player B. These are career numbers for him because he is currently an NBA pro.
So this is NBA numbers.
Yeah. 24 points per game.
And this is not per 36?
No, this is just his career averages.
Okay, 24 points per game.
6.5 rebounds per game. 3 assists per game. He shoots 44% from the field. He shoots 34% from 3. He's an 81% free throw shooter. He is 6'8". Yeah, 81. He's 6'8".
Can I guess the players?
Yeah, go ahead. Well, the weights also. Player A is 230. Player B is 240.
Well, I'm guessing the college players Miles.
It's Miles Bridges.
And I'm guessing the NBA player is Rudy Gay.
No.
Damn.
Do you want a hint or do you want to keep guessing?
How long has he played in the? Is he current?
He came in 2003.
Current?
Yeah.
Carmelo
Anthony.
Okay.
And going through those numbers, except for maybe the career, and I get they're different, but I mean, except for the points per game, the rebounds, the assists, even the percentages. I just thought to myself, looking at Bridges and looking at the numbers, I go, kind of reminds me, could he just be a lesser Melo?
You're comparing him to New York Melo. That's what you're comparing him to.
Not Denver Melo.
Not Denver Melo. Because Denver Melo was Jason Tatum, and it was clear as day.
Yeah.
Because that boy, Carmelo's quickness back in the day was unreal.
Can we say that, though, that maybe is Miles Bridges' best New York Melo?
No, because New York Melo is a dynamic scorer, and you can't say that about Miles Bridges right now. And, Carmelo was making money down in the
New
post.
York Melo light? Could we make that comparison at all?
If you're,
or am I reaching for straws by thinking
reaching
that?
For straws.
Because I'm like, you know what?
Totally reaching
I'm like,
for straws.
the body is similar. Yeah, Melo's got an inch.
The body's similar. No, you're right on the body.
Similar,
you're right
and then
about the body.
Maybe it's me just thinking about the stats in my head, but I'm like, you know what? Melo wasn't a huge rebounder, and really, the per 34.
6.5 is pretty decent.
Yeah, but I mean the 8 that I know it's projected for Miles Bridges, but that's not going to be. He's not going to get 8 per game.
That's different. When you're a great athlete, when you can jump out of the roof, you're going to out rebound everybody.
But even the shooting percentages were similar. I mean, really, Melo's were a little bit better, I want to say, from the field overall. But that's just something that hit me as we were talking. He kind of looks the part, and the stats might be there. Maybe I'm reaching for straws here, but that's just a thought that came to my head.
I think
Am I completely crazy?
Yeah, I think I don't know. Again, the thing is I think you can weirdly enough compare Miles Bridges and Kevin Knox both to Tobias Harris.
Okay.
Because again, similar body right there. They have similar games. It's just I think that Miles again is more finished now, but where will he end up? In his career, will he put that extra work in? And then with Kevin Knox, you have skin and bones right now, and he could work his way up to that level. And you're pretty much molding him to your own system. You're taking a younger kid. You're taking a more athletic kid as well. So maybe again, I'll kind of bring that in. Maybe Kevin Knox at his massive peak, at his highest peak, he could be Carmelo Anthony.
Okay.
All right. But I think his probably at least fair ceiling would be a Tobias Harris. Him hitting Carmelo would be a 99 or a 1% chance of happening.
Last question I'll ask, and maybe we should have talked about this in the first segment, but I'll throw it out here. Taking Mikhail out of it, because I think that no matter what he does at the combine, it ain't gonna hurt him drastically or help him amazingly. For Kevin Knox and Miles Bridges, mainly because in my big board, they were right back to back. Is there anything that Kevin Knox can do or Miles Bridges can't do to have them flip? Kind of like the same question we did for Colin Sexton, Shea Gilgeous.
Flip? No. I think Miles Bridges is going to go in. I think the only thing again comes down. Well, I think it depends on if it's
to where like Kevin Knox is. Oh, now he is the second best wing in the draft.
I don't think he's going to have a performance like that where it's going to make him flip over Miles. Because again, you're not taking in just the combine; you're taking in the body of work. Kevin Knox.
It's also we get the official measurements too.
Kevin also in the first half of Kentucky was great, and then he started to kind of lose some gas near the end, where Miles was very consistent over his first 2 years at Michigan State. You're taking in that whole body of work. I think the one thing that could possibly flip it, though, is if Kevin Knox absolutely kills it in the interviews and then goes out and has great solo workouts where people say, oh, wow, we see a ton of potential in this kid. And I think that's what it's going to be more about. Maybe you could show that in the combine, but I think it's going to be more when people start to get to talk to him, get to know him, and start to understand him, where they start seeing that potential because, hey, this kid has an unreal work ethic that won't quit. He has a great killer mentality. We think that we can take his body, his athleticism, and make him a great NBA player because they've either had work with him before or work with a player like him before, or something along the lines. Like maybe the Clippers see, if Miles and Kevin Knox are still on the board, they see, hey, well, we think that he can become Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is already on our team. Yeah. Why wouldn't we just pair him up? So I think that could possibly be a thing where he's going to really probably separate himself in team interviews and then also solo workouts.
I mean, especially if they look at my article and they trade Tobias for Kawhi Leonard.
Can I throw something out? Well,
go ahead.
That's different, though, because they're losing their 2 picks and Kevin Knox might not be available at 18.
Well, they can probably... you're right. He won't be there at 18.
The one guy that could possibly jump Kevin Knox, though...
is Zaire Smith.
Combine is Zaire Smith because this kid's a freak athlete.
Do you think he will? Do you think that come draft day, because of not because of the combine, but with the combine's help, we're looking at Smith? Maybe mock draft our next one for the fast break. Are we looking at Zaire Smith as being drafted above Kevin Knox? Like, look into the crystal ball. What do you say?
Are we saying we as
we'll say our mock draft here at MVP. Our next mock
we don't
draft.
have a consensus mock draft though.
Or the big board. If you think do you think on maybe minor Brandon Zaire Smith jumps at Kevin Knox?
I think so.
Okay.
I think he could, for sure. And I think already Zaire Smith, in Dave's mind, is better than Kevin Knox, I think.
Yeah. Well, he had him top 10, I believe.
Well, I think that was because of a Philly fit, because of the potential, because Zaire has more potential in Dave's mind than Kevin Knox. So I think Zaire, in some people's mind, if he balls out of the combine, could totally jump Kevin Knox.
And, I mean, I'm looking at our big board. I think it was early. I think it was right after the tournament is when we did it. He was neither of our top 25s for Brandon and I. But that was also one where Gafford's not going to be in there anymore because he's going back to school. I think Troy Brown might fall out. Raleigh Atkins might fall out. So there's going to be some shakeup, especially in the big boards. But any final thoughts before we move on to some college football?
Michael Porter Jr. isn't a wing.
Okay. He's a 4 in Sean's mind.
He's a 4.
He's a 4.
Unless
I
he
see
comes
him as
healthy.
a wing.
Unless he's healthy.
Unless he's 100% healthy in your mind.
Yeah, I don't see the quickness to play 3.
Well, this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think. Outside of Michael Porter Jr., who's the best wing in this draft? Is it Mikal Bridges, Miles Bridges, Zaire Smith? Is it Kevin Knox? Let us know who you guys got down below in the comment section. But Sean, let's close out the podcast going away from the NBA, going away from college basketball. We're moving a little bit. Gradually, we're going back into college football here for the Primetime Podcast. It will be not too much longer. We got the rest of May, and then come June, Brandon and I are already previewing college football teams going all the way. And that'll take us from June to August, and then August, the season starts, and we're basically in full swing. But last week, we kind of looked at 2 teams, Michigan and Jim Harbaugh. Should he be on the hot seat? We kind of looked at expectations for Jimbo Fisher. This was one we were going to talk about last week. It got shelved. We're now talking about it this week. And basically, we're taking a look at the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And can Scott Frost turn around this, I almost said Alabama, this Nebraska team this season? And before we get into anything, I've got to throw this out because Brandon, A, would be upset if I didn't. And 2, I brought this to the table just for him. There's an article, apparently, that Scott Frost does not believe that Central Florida should be national champions, where he said, and I quote, "I completely get behind their argument. I do think it was almost criminal how low they kept UCF in the rankings, and I think it was intentional. But at the end of the day, the playoff system is that the national champion is the team that wins the playoff, end quote. So I thought Brandon would like that because he's always bashing the Golden Knights for claiming themselves national champions. But looking at Scott Frost now in redder pastures at his alma mater of Nebraska, I'll ask you, Bo Pelini's no longer there, hasn't been there for a while. Coach Riley's not there. Can Scott Frost turn around Nebraska this season, or is it going to be a Tom Herman where it's going to be a process and year one might be a little shaky?
This year, I don't think, I mean, it depends on what you think turnaround means. Will they have a losing record? That I think you could definitely see Scott Frost turn them around this year. I think, again, we saw what he did with an 0-8 UCF team and turn them into a 6-7 team that actually made a bowl the next year. And that was with, I think, very little recruits. He was able to take a team with, pretty much the bones, just the draft, the recruits of George O'Leary, George O'Leary, and turn them into a near 500 team. I think that's possible this year. I think you can probably get back to 500 if you're the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I couldn't tell you the last time they were 500, but it felt like a while. I know they were in a couple bowl games. I think they had 9 wins a couple years ago.
They haven't been to a bowl game since 2016. And they haven't won 10 games in a season since 2012.
Okay.
So since I graduated college, they have not won 10 games in a season.
So I don't think they're going to break that streak of not winning 10 games since 2012. However, I do think that Scott Frost could possibly make some noise and at least win, maybe 5 or 6. It's probably, I'll say 6 games. I think he could win 6 or 7 games this year, just because I think he's able to bring at least a culture that kids are able to buy in. And then once he also is able to bring in recruits, have a full season of recruiting, work on these players that are up and coming. He has a couple seniors on this team that could make some noise as well. I think that Scott Frost could definitely at least turn them in the right direction and not have them go 4-8, 3-9, and have them be a laughingstock of the Big Ten again.
Well, and that's the thing that I look at is I think that with Scott Frost, you can look at what he did at UCF and translate that over to where the best thing about Scott Frost is he's a guy that can come into a situation and make a team it might take a year to do it because, 2016, UCF did go 6-7, 4-4 in conference. But like you said, this was a team in 2015 that won 0 games. So winning 6 games was a huge win for them, although they lost their bowl game, and that's why they finished with a losing record overall. This Nebraska team, though, that's the thing it's got to start with is the culture around it. Can he come in, and it looks like already in spring that he is setting a culture that he wants for Nebraska. And I mean, the article that ESPN has where they wrote about it, one of the 4-star recruits that came in out of California who they said underachieved in his 2 seasons at Nebraska said, I mean, it's kind of up to us to be on the same page. So he's kind of coming in, and he's bringing an energy to this team early on, but Scott Frost is also a guy that it's accountability on the players as well, where it's like, hey, I'm not going to come in and just wave my magic wand and boom, make us a 6-win team year one. Like, they're going to have to put in the work in order for this thing to pay out. The only question is he going to have the talent year one to be able to do that? Because one of the big things that helped him at UCF was, especially this past year, it's not like one player changes at all, but the story like with Shaquem Griffin, where it's like, hey, the old regime didn't even use you. Scott Frost comes in and uses you, and look at what you develop into.
Well, and also look at how many pros have come out of UCF, at least defensively, over the past couple of years. I mean, Shaquem, obviously an example of Mike Hughes, just got picked up by your Vikings as well. Shaquem's brother picked up by the Seahawks. I mean, we're churning out NFL pros under the Scott Frost in such a small time that he was there. So, I mean, again, the talent was there on that team, and Nebraska still was able to bring in recruits. Mike Riley didn't do a horrible job recruiting. I mean, they didn't have, top draft classes or anything like that. But, again, they still had talent on their team, and I think Scott Frost does the best of bringing talent, at least I think better than Mike Riley does, bringing talent out of these players, out of these guys that have been recruited. I think the biggest question though for Scott Frost, I know Big Ten, you don't really need great quarterback play, but having great quarterback play is definitely going to help. Scott Frost eases, at least worries a bit. And they don't have a guy that's taken snaps in college on their roster right now. They have 4 quarterbacks currently rostered. None of them have played snaps. One's a redshirt freshman. One's a recently committed freshman. Then they have, I think, a sophomore. I think they have 2 sophomores after that. And Patrick O'Brien, one of them, just transferred out as well. So they don't have an answer at the quarterback right now. I think ultimately you're probably going to have a freshman starting as well, because the guy that really stands out to me is this kid from Fresno, California, Adrian Martinez. 6'2", 205, was ranked 56th in the ESPN 300. He's a pocket passer, also seems to have a little bit of athletic ability where he might be dangerous on the feet, and having some wide receiver help on the outside in a stud in the senior Stanley Morgan, and then also J.D. Spielman, who is the son of Rick Spielman, your buddy in Minnesota. I think this could possibly...
You're trying to bring this back full circle with like all the Viking references.
I think that this could be... no, Stefan Diggs was Maryland. I think this could be, again...
Still Big Ten.
A part of the offense that Scott Frost can at least lean on, and bringing so many guys from UCF, I think they can lean on at least that part of the offense and maybe get something good out of this freshman quarterback. And again, they have weapons on the outside as well. And then defensively, I'm not too worried because Scott Frost knows his defense. I mean, like I know I think he was a quarterback at Nebraska, but he was transferred over as a 3rd-round draft pick as a safety and has been mainly a defensive guy throughout his career coaching. So I think Scott Frost coming in with his background defensively, I think he could probably turn this Nebraska defense around. And as long as Adrian Martinez is able to do enough, I think they can get 6 to 7 wins this year.
Well, and the one thing that Nebraska hasn't had to deal with since, I'm going to start with Bo Pelini. They have, since Bo Pelini up until now, guess how many starting quarterbacks they have had?
Since Bo Pelini?
Since 2008, how many guys have they had start from 2008? Well, basically 9 seasons almost.
Okay. Well, 9 plus 7, 16.
16 quarterbacks in 9 seasons?
Yeah.
Four starters.
I don't know how bad they were.
No, I
didn't know if they were like circling out and getting injured.
No, this is a situation where Nebraska has, 2008 when Bo Pelini came in.
It's such a shitty guess.
Yeah, you had Joe. 16 quarterbacks. They had Illinois, hometown guy, Joe Gans. I was in graduating high school. Did not follow Nebraska football when Joe Gans was the quarterback. Then the next year, Zach Lee was their main starter. He started that year, got benched in 2010 because here's the big thing. From 2010 to 2013,
that's the guy.
Taylor Martinez. And then from basically 2013 to 2016, you had Tommy Armstrong Jr. So for that gap of time,
those are the only 4 guys that made starts.
Exactly. Like they were the main. Well, they were the main passing leaders. They took most of the snaps in their 4 years.
Now maybe 16 doesn't look too bad because you're just going off stats here. All right? How many games did these guys start, Ricky Widmer? That's the question.
They are the ones where I'll have to look into that one. But those were like, especially for the last 2, when you go from Taylor Martinez into Tommy Armstrong Jr., like, you don't really have a question at quarterback. This is the first year in a long time where Nebraska, to me, has had a question at what are they going to do at quarterback.
I mean, even then, they haven't had great quarterbacks. I mean, Taylor Martinez was a good quarterback. I wouldn't say Taylor Martinez was a great quarterback.
Let's see. Taylor Martinez was there.
He looks great compared to all the other guys that you
Let's see. 2010 to 2013 is when Taylor Martinez was there. 2010, they went 10-4, lost in the Holiday Bowl to Washington. 2011, they went 9-4. That was 3rd in the Big Ten Legends, first year for the Legends. They lost in their bowl game to South Carolina. 2012, they went 12-4, finished first of their side in the Legends, lost to Georgia in their bowl game. And then 2013, his last year, 9-4, tied for 2nd in their division. They won their bowl game against Georgia. Yeah. So, I mean, take it as you will, where, they were winning 10-9 games, but they were losing the bowl game, and they weren't getting to, like, the New Year Sixes. It was, or the big New Year Sixes. It was 2 years of the Holiday Bowl, 2 years of the Capital One Bowl.
Well, I think a big thing, too, I mean, even going back to Taylor Martinez, I mean, they have a massive run game. Last year, they didn't have a 500-yard rusher, let alone a 1,000-yard rusher. And, I mean, you look back at that Taylor Martinez days, Rex Burkhead, NFL pro, Amir Abdullah, an okay NFL pro. You know, I mean, like they've had guys who were able to contribute to their run game, and they just have not had an offense in the past couple of years. And I know Scott Frost will fix the defense, but if they're able to solve that quarterback question, it could, it could clear the way for maybe 6 to 7 wins for this team.
Do you know the last running back for Nebraska to have over 1,000 yards in a season? It was 2014.
Ron Dane was Wisconsin.
This guy is currently in the NFL.
Amir Abdullah. He had
just over 1,600 yards
freak
on the ground. And he had 1,000 yards all 3 years. I think that he was
monster.
The starter for them. And then right before had, like you said, Rex Burkhead, 1,000-yard rusher for Nebraska.
And I mean, looking at their schedule, I mean, they're going to start off with 3 straight home games. Like, I think that they can go 3-0. They're playing Akron, they're playing Colorado, they're playing Troy. Toughest game in that.
Colorado.
Troy.
Maybe.
Troy was a really good program last year.
They did beat LSU last year.
They were a really good program. They've been a sleeper program. I think Troy is going to probably be the toughest game out of that one. Because Colorado wasn't great last year. And, I mean, outside of Isaiah Oliver, they didn't have any significant NFL pros on that team. And you're losing your best player in Isaiah Oliver. He was the best part of that Colorado team. I think you could possibly go 3-0 with that one loss being to Troy. I think you're going to lose at Michigan. Purdue is a winnable game, so I'll give you 3 wins there.
Purdue's the interesting one because that's one where Purdue fans are expecting a second step in year 2 of Jeff Brom.
But also that's at home where Scott Frost, in your first Big Ten home game,
you got to win it.
So I think I'll give that win to Nebraska. As much as it pains to say me, I think that they can beat Northwestern at Ryan Field, and then I think they can beat Minnesota. And 100% offense to you, I think they're going to beat the shit out of Illinois.
Oh, you're telling me they can't beat Lovey's gray beard?
6.
They can't beat the Lovey gray beard?
And that levels out to 6 wins because they're not going to beat Iowa at Iowa. They probably aren't going to beat Michigan State. They're not going to beat Ohio State. I don't think they're going to beat Wisconsin. I don't think they're going to beat Michigan. So it really depends on that Troy game, and it depends on that Northwestern game. But I think they can have the path to 6 or 7 wins and go to a bowl game.
To me, if you're a Nebraska fan, 6-6 is going to be good for you.
Yeah.
And the reason being is, hey, you're not going to win. Like, to me, look at their conference schedule. It's exactly what you said. No way you beat Michigan at the big house. Wisconsin will beat you at their house. I feel like Northwestern Ryan Field might be a toss-up. I would still maybe give that to Northwestern right now.
Well, I don't know how they're going to look, though. I mean, like, their quarterback's okay, but they just lost their leading rusher, Justin Jackson, so it's going to be interesting.
On the road, too. So, I mean, that's the thing. Yeah. That's why it's not a huge push the needle, but it's a
back-to-back road games. So where you have that's your second time going on the road. You're going to go into Camp Randall, and Camp Randall, compared to Ryan Field, that's going into the deep end to
the shallower end.
A kiddie pool. So, I mean, no offense to Northwestern fans, but you're not Camp Randall. And you're also facing a worse program in Northwestern.
Like you said, no way you're winning at the Horseshoe. I don't think you win at Iowa.
And you got the elite of the elites in this schedule. And I know Nebraska's in the West because they used to be an elite of the elite. And I think Scott Frost can get them there in 3 years. It's just, again, dependent on how quickly are they going to buy into this, into the Scott Frost system.
And that's, to me, where 6 wins, like, the games that you threw out there, I totally agree, can be totally winnable. That's why the 2 that I'm going to put under the microscope this year, Minnesota and Purdue. Because the thing that if we go next level on those 2 games, those are games that most people would expect you to win. But Purdue, like I said, many Purdue fans, and Matt's one of them, one of our patrons, Matt, he's really looking for an improved season for Jeff Brom in year 2 at the head of Purdue. Same thing with Minnesota. A lot of Minnesota fans are expecting PJ Fleck to give them more wins than last year. If one of those teams comes up to play against you, basically, rah, you're like, this is our World Series, this is our Super Bowl, and they beat you, then that could ruin your 6-win goal because of, like we said, the Michigans, the Wisconsins, the Ohio State. Then you would have to win at Ryan Field, because if you don't win that game, great. Or you have to win now at home against Michigan State, because if you don't win one of those two games, now you're a 5-7 team and not make it. Well, you might still be able to make a bowl game because of how crappy the pool has been, but you won't get an automatic lock to a bowl game.
Yeah, I think that, again, bowl should be the goal for rhymes.
Bowl should be the goal
for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I think, and probably best case scenario, you get 7 wins. Worst case scenario, you go 4-8 again.
Yeah, this is a team that last year 3-6, 3-6 in conference overall. They went 4-8 last year, whereas like Minnesota, I said they're expecting big things. 2-7 last year in conference, 5-7 overall. Where Purdue was 4-5, 7-6 overall. So I mean, those are kind of where you are. Some people might say we're overhyping Iowa too, because last year they were a 4-5 team within the conference and only 8-5 overall.
Spanked the hell out of Ohio State, and still
at
again,
home, where that's where Nebraska is going to be playing.
Still, again, one hell of a team. Final game of the season, you're going to be at home. It's going to be an extremely tough game. I mean, Iowa is a team that consistently comes up and plays against big opponents. So if you're coming in winning, Scott Frost's first year, you're trying to get a win here at in Iowa. I forget their stadium name. At Iowa, it's going to be a tough game. Iowa's going to give you a tough one.
I'm going to say they have the best tradition now in college football. The Wave to the Children's Hospital. That's the best.
Well, I feel bad saying, you should be waving at patients at a children's hospital. I mean, like that. I'm like Satan if I say that, but like I'm just, again, like it's so overplayed on social media. Like they're still playing B-roll of it, like in December, like not even December, in like April. It's like, okay, we know this happens. And come on.
And I know it's a different team. I know it is, but just to give you some kind of context of how things went last year. So November 4th, Iowa beats Ohio State 55-24. The next 2 games, at Wisconsin, home against Purdue, they lose both of those games. They play Nebraska in Nebraska on Thanksgiving weekend. Guess what the score of that game is, and guess who wins? Iowa, 56-14. I know it's a different year. I know Scott Frost is there. But I could see that happening again this year, especially with it being in Iowa and depending on what we see with this Nebraska team. Any final thoughts on Nebraska before we close out the podcast?
Go Cornhuskers.
Go Cornhuskers. Well, this is where...
And I miss you, Taylor Martinez.
We're going to turn it... Was he the main Nebraska guy that you remember watching?
Yeah,
back in the day?
Nebraska football in my lifetime, at least my lifetime, has not been memorable.
No. It's been Taylor Martinez. And it's been then Tommy Armstrong Jr.
It's been Taylor Martinez and that picture of Bo Pelini holding a cat.
Well, this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in the comment section. Will Scott Frost turn around Nebraska this season? Can he turn them around this season? What do you expect for the Cornhuskers down below in the comment section? I want to thank you guys for sticking around either for the segment or for the full podcast on podcast services around the world, or on YouTube if you're listening to the full thing. A little bit of housekeeping here at the end. Number 1, make sure to check out the store to get your MVP t-shirt. Check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast to support the channel and become like Matthew, who we referenced in this segment, who a huge Purdue fan. He will be on for our Purdue segment, our Purdue preview later this year. Crossing our fingers that works out. Also, check out iTunes and Apple Podcasts. Give the Primetime Podcast a 5-star rating. And last but not least, Most Valuable Podcast is where you're going to catch everything for MVP each and every day. Want to thank you guys for watching on YouTube. Want to thank Sean for filling in for Brandon this week.
Of course.
Want to thank you guys for watching, not filling in. For filling in. For listening on podcast services around the world.
Please don't sue us, Phil DeFranco.
And as always, have a good day, everybody.